Hi, this is Charles Castleberry. I want to share a little of my epic journey with you, how we found our family farm home here in Pennsylvania. One day about 1980 or 81, I was driving down Germantown Pike. I knew there were a couple of Castleberry homes somewhere in Pennsylvania. I thought they were near State College in the middle of the state. But about a mile south of Collegeville, I turned left at this intersection because I thought, hey, my dad told me these homes were somewhere near a town with the word college in it. And I had just left Collegeville. It was about 15 minutes north of where I first worked out here in this area. I went around this corner. Little did I know, I was passing a cemetery with all kinds of family members in it. As a matter of fact, this building right here is called, it was built for the propagation of the gospel. One of the signers was Paul Casselberry, one of the petitioners to build that in 1735. And in this cemetery are many, many Castleberries and relatives of Castleberries, Rushes and Wentzes and Custers and others. I've got to tell you, there's this barn right here. It's called a bank barn. This bank goes up to the second story. It's a German bank barn. I passed this corner and went around past this barn. And I came upon a White House on the left of the road. And I decided to pull off to the side of the road and walked up to the front door. And at that time, it had on the door a plaque that said Historic Casselberry House. And this is the property, and here's more of the barn. At the time, they didn't have this sign on the barn. And on it, it says Castleberry Barn, Evansburg. And it's a beautiful old stone barn. So, as I said, I walked up to the door and it said Historic Castleberry House. I knocked on the door. I hadn't even thought, what would the people ask or what would I say when I knocked on the door? I thought the Castleberry homes were somewhere near State College, about 3.5 hours away from here. And just out of the blue, I had turned left and walked up to this door here. This house was built in two sections. On the left is a front door. Well, this first section was built in the mid-1700s sometime, and then there's another front door that this section from here over included the central stairway and dining room. It was built in 1795. And then back behind here is another addition that was built in around 1820, we understand. And that included, of course, a basement, a kitchen, and then bedrooms up above. They've since added a bathroom. We've got a garage and a shop on the property. This used to be a shop, an antique shop, antique store, way a long time ago. I just mowed the yard here today, and again, this is the back of the old kitchen, and we're gonna stop here and then we're gonna go inside. Here we've got the roofer, Doug Wanamaker, coming down the stairs, down his steps, his ladder. He's been working hard. Here's the back door we're actually going in. This was the old kitchen. It had a Dutch door. This old 1820s door. We're going to, I guess, stain it and make it look a little better, but keep it in its natural state. Oh, shucks. We just had this counter put on today and a new kitchen put in. And it's just absolutely gorgeous. we couldn't say that about the kitchen before. And we've got stairs or a door goes down to the basement, and then another door with what's called a winder stairs that goes upstairs. One of 3 stairways that goes up. Here's the dining room floor. Will be again, this was in the 1795 edition. So we're installing a new chandelier here, some lights for to wash the mantle with light. We'll be putting a couple of sconces in here, and these will all be pewter fixes and pewter fixtures, and they will be gorgeous. This is the stairway that was built in. I love the old hardware on the door with the big old T. Central hall here. We have a very interesting water closet right here. Underneath the stairs is a little half bath. We haven't done anything with this one yet. These walls are like 23 inches thick. Big wall here. This divides the early 1700s home with the addition that was done in 1795. So the stone wall is still here. The local, or the central parlor. And then this is the original old-time kitchen with the swinging arm and the pots. An old door going down to the basement, and then this one also is a winder stair that goes up to a second story bedroom, and then a story bedroom, and then a third story attic loft. Again, we've got old hardware here. It's kind of neat how this is an old, that's how we lock it, and that's how you unlock the old door here. So we'll go upstairs in a minute. So here we're walking up the stairs. We're having the floors redone beginning next week. These old mid-1700 and 1800 era floorboards are not that bad a shape. Here we've got a door that goes up to the attic. That was an old window that was the back of the house before they did the kitchen addition. Again, a thick stone wall here. A bedroom with a fireplace and a little old closet. They used to just have little pegs to put their clothes on. That's about all the clothes somebody had back in the old days, in the 1700s. There's a bathroom here that we have just finished. Some of the tile work, plumbing will be put in this week. Another old bedroom, then up to the attic and down to the second floor. Coming across, we're going to go across the entry, the stair landing, and then into the bedroom, which is in the 1795 edition, which is above the dining room. This one has a fireplace, and then another exit door that goes down to the stairs, down to the kitchen. These walls are very thick stone. When we take a couple steps down, we're going into the master bedroom area. Again, you see the thick walls. We have just taken out a couple of closets, 3 closets that were on the floor right here. They were very tiny, to open the room up, and then we are adding a closet here in the sitting area. Then into the bathroom, we've just put this tile flooring in this room and the other bathroom. And here we had this countertop just installed today. And again, we've got the tile work around the new bathtub here. This was old plastic stuff before that was just absolutely what you might call horrendous. We're going to show you a couple of other things outside. We just had the roof installed yesterday. Doug, who's up on the roof finishing up some flashing on the 3 chimneys, is almost killed in an accident 2 days ago where he slipped off the roof carrying the bundle that had just been placed up by a large boom, and he went sliding all the way off the roof, and the bracing for the scaffolding, the little thing was sticking out, and as he was falling off down toward the cement where he would have crashed on his head, it caught his pants and held him upside down and kept him from falling down and probably dying. This house next door, this next door property, is called the Casselberry House. It was built in the mid-1730s. The initial section was, and that's the narrow place on the left. You can see where the stonework changes, and then another section was added, and then finally the last section was added. You can tell the different stone, and then in the mid-1800s they added a 3rd story and a gambrel roof. George Washington used this home as his headquarters after the Battle of Brandywine and shortly before the Battle of Germantown on September 20th, 1777. Down in here is there's a stream between our 2 properties with a well house, or I forgot what you call it, but it's kind of dilapidated. There used to be a barn out here, a big red barn, and the story that they told me in 1981 or whenever I was here was that when George Washington came here, Mr. Castleberry sent his wife and younger children about 20 miles away by wagon. He and his son came to this, they stayed in the barn, and the story's told that his son looked out between the cracks of the wood in the red barn and marveled that that big charger, that big white-gray horse, belonged to General Washington. Now we're going to walk over to the cemetery because I'd like to share a few things with you there. Well, as we're walking past the house up toward the cemetery, we see the old pump that's just beside the house here, and we can see that it brings that water right on up. So this old barn, as we're walking to the cemetery, has a bunch of Dutch doors on it. There's an entry door, and then there were 4 of them under the overhang here that allowed the horses to stick their heads out of the top of it and remain in there. And then there's some actually some sliding bars that would come across through these holes right here and into the other, and there's one high and one low, so they could just have bars across as well. Taking a look inside the barn, it's kind of dark in here, but let's turn on a light. Big old central beam that runs the entire width of the barn. We've got some groundhogs we're trying to get rid of that are doing a little damage underneath of this storage space. Here's where the horse stalls were. They'd love to chew on there. Now over here on this patch on the wall is scratched into the mortar. It says John Castleberry, August of 1830, and 1831. We don't know for sure if that was the date the barn was built or if that's when that patch was put in. And he signed that. Going upstairs, there's a, now we're upstairs, but this is the top of the, it's called the bank, where they would bring the wagons in. This big whole door would open, but also big double door, but there's a man door cut in that we're able to come in. Big, huge planks of boards separating parts of the barn. And some of these are like 19 inches wide. We've got a section over in here with big, tall roof that goes way up. And here's an old hay hook that was found up in the rafters, all dirty on the bottom. They would fork the hay and grab the hay and throw it down to the animals below. And there's another section over here as well. And it was built so well. Each of the logs were pieces of lumber were cut outside, and then they would mark where they go together with Roman numerals, and that's how they knew which board went where. You see them all over the place here. So you knew where to place each piece. We'll come on out. We'll cross to the down the ramp. So this is the bank where they would bring the wagons up to the barn. There's the door that's open there. Now in this cemetery, this is a St. James Episcopal Church. It was an Anglican church initially, and it's one of the original Episcopal churches in America. The church was first built in, I think, around 1721, and it was first a log structure. Might have been built before that. Perhaps the stone structure was built in 1721. And the cemetery, of course, grew up around it. We see a Mary Alice Castleberry here. Over a little bit further is a Jacob Rush Castleberry, where the large stone was, or is, right over here is where the original log and then stone churches were. And says it was erected 1721. I think there was a log church for a decade or so before that. Now the new church is across the street. So this church that was right here was used as a hospital following the Battle of Germantown. They treated many wounded soldiers here. And it says, this stone marks the burial place of a number of soldiers who died for the cause of American independence from 1775 to 1783. Valley Forge chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution, erected in 1908. Valley Forge is 9 miles from here. As we come over this way just a little bit is the grave of Captain Vachel Howard of the Maryland Light Dragoons. George Washington, as president, rode up to here to pay respects. He asked the sexton to show him the grave of Captain Howard. He stood here reverently, removed his hat, and said, "This is the grave of a brave man, a very brave man. I knew him well." He was lucky to have his grave marked. Over 150 soldiers who were unknown, who died following the Battle of Germantown after being cared for in this church, are buried right here. This is the tomb of unknown soldiers, Revolutionary War. Over 150 husbands, fathers, and sons, never to be known. It's a humbling experience to know that so many who gave their lives are right here, right in the shadow of our barn and home. Little did we know 30 some years ago when I first saw this place that about 37 years ago that we would come out here to visit this last August. There was a sign that said for sale by auction. Well, this home needed to be preserved. This is part of the Evansburg National Historic District, designated by Congress in 1972. These two homes and that church and cemetery are significant contributions to the Evansburg National Historic District. Across the street from us is Evansburg State Park, a huge state park with, over down further, they've got hunting and fishing in Skippack Creek, ball fields, pavilions, even a golf course down the road. So this will always be here across the street. We have deer that come into the yard and lay down here. Of course, woodchucks, raccoons. But we felt that since this property was zoned commercial and it took so much to restore it, that we're in the midst of right now, we were afraid it would be torn down for commercial purposes. This needed to be restored. Needed to be restored for the community. It needed to be restored for family. I've done this much because my father loved history. He loved his family. This is some of the early contributions of family members. Around 1683, Heinrich Casselberry came here from Germany. He was a Mennonite. Mennonites and Quakers came here at the invitation of Daniel Pastorius, who worked with William Penn to create Germantown. My father told me that our first grandmother, Catherine, who married Heinrich Casselberry, became Henry Castleberry. She attended the first anti-slavery meeting ever held in America. I didn't know much about it, but I've learned since. 4 men in 1688 wrote a petition to outlaw slavery in Pennsylvania. Slavery was not outlawed until 1776, about 90 years after this slavery petition was presented to the Quaker meetings. They couldn't act on it. It was too big of a deal for them to take care of, so they sent it to Philadelphia for action. Philadelphia couldn't act on it, so they sent it to their headquarters in New Jersey, and then finally to London. No action was taken. This document is in Haverford University, which is down on the main line by Bryn Mawr College and also Villanova. It's a gorgeous area. I went there yesterday, and they brought out the 1688 petition against slavery for me to hold. 3 of the men who wrote it were were Mennonite. 1 was Quaker, Daniel Pastorius. They kind of communed together, and then later the couple of the Quakers moved up here. 2 brothers, the Optengraff brothers, Abraham and I think Garrett was his brother. Abraham's daughter owned this farm here, Mrs. Richard Adams. Her daughter married Paul Casselberry, the son of Henry Casselberry. 175 years before the Emancipation Proclamation, these people realized that slavery was an evil. They said people from civilized countries of Europe wouldn't come here.
They needed to outlaw slavery. This was barbaric. They said that the blacks had as much right to fight for their freedom as these Quakers had to keep them in bondage. 50% of the English Quakers owned slaves. Philadelphia was a major slave trading port at that time. Again, it wasn't done away with or outlawed in Pennsylvania until 1776. At this church here, where Paul Castleberry and his wife Margaret were pew holders, that shows how many men, how many women, and how many slaves belonged to each family that had a pew in the St. James Church. These men said, we know how horrible it is to travel on the ocean. And they knew that they were always susceptible to, they called them Turks, taking them slaves. Those were the Muslims from the Turkish areas. So they knew how bad slavery was and how much they feared it. Yet, these people put the blacks in bondage. This document said that you're dealing with stolen goods. These people were stolen from their homes. You're forcing them into adultery. It certainly didn't go with the golden rule to treat others as you would wish to be treated. Many other reasons that they gave that slavery should be outlawed. So I applaud these men for their foresight. I'm honored that Abraham Optengraph is the grandfather of one of the lines of the Castleberry family. We need to preserve this history and let others know that there were men who were willing to stand up for the rights of others as early as 1688 to make a stand for the right. Thank you for letting me share this with you. This is an awesome opportunity that we feel, my wife Vanette and I have, restoring this home and preserving it for future generations. Thank you.